As good as they are when they're at the best, Manchester United at the moment are basically on life support. There's a hell of a lot wrong at the club, and I'm going to take a little bit of a deep dive into that, maybe looking at the Fulham match as just an example of what's going wrong. And I'm going to start off by looking specifically at the Man United versus Fulham problems, and they had a hell of a lot. Even as someone that doesn't watch the side that much, I'm a Leeds fan, I don't watch that much Manchester United, I figured I'd give it a look today because everyone's been talking about that club, and the first thing I noticed is that they have an absolutely poor pressing structure. They were playing against a Fulham side that do not look comfortable in possession at all. They might pass it around a little bit at the back, but that's because that's what everyone does. It's not something that is intrinsic to Fulham. When you think Fulham, you don't think nice, clever little bits of passing play. You think small side, fairly plucky, want to sneak a win. That's the perfect opportunity for, let's be honest, very expensive, very fast, and very technically able players to press up to them, force mistakes, and claim plenty of goals. But that didn't happen because Manchester United were incredibly passive throughout this match. They let Fulham play in front of them for a hell of a lot of what I was able to watch. And that's a big problem for them. And part of that inviting pressure on is because they are too reliant on transitions. Transitional play is where the ball goes through a turnover, either you win the ball or you give the ball away, and one of the sides pounces on the attack. Not necessarily a counter-attack, because if you win the ball in your opponent's defensive third, that's still a transition because the ball's transitioned from their possession to yours. It's still transitional football, but they weren't attacking, so it's not a counter. And this constant reliance on transitions is normally something that you expect in the FA Cup from a side that is 4 divisions lower than the side they're playing against. Not Manchester United against Fulham in the Premier League, when Man United quite badly need a result to get things up and running. And although they did win, I don't think they really deserved to. In addition to that, there was missing quality absolutely throughout the team. First person to note is Anthony, because he just severely lacked creativity. We all know that he's one-footed. We all know that he's got a few tricks in his locker, but he doesn't have that much outside of that. But against sides like Fulham, that should be completely fine. It shouldn't be a struggle to make your mark when the person that you're against is Anthony Robinson and you cost something like 80 million quid to be signed by your club. But even then, Anthony didn't have any impact on this match. He took the ball on a few times, tried the odd dribble. Can't remember if he got himself booked, but he tried a very, very lazy challenge when Anthony Robinson was just sprinting away from him. He didn't do anything defensively. He didn't do anything offensively. His chance creation is absolutely dreadful, and you can tell that he's only scored 1 goal in all of his league matches at Manchester United, and it's because he's not good enough. Similarly, not good enough, and I feel like even though he scored the winner he got fairly lucky to, Bruno Fernandes. He's the sort of player that whenever things are going against him, you'll see this in like 5-a-side and 7-a-side. Something goes against him, he'll just throw a fit. He'll be annoyed for the rest of the match. And in spite of the fact that he did have those moments in this game, he still managed to score a winner. And it was fair enough, a decent enough finish. And it was not the finish itself that was fairly lucky. It's the fact that Manchester United got the opportunity to finish. Because Fulham really didn't manage anything against them. I've put here that it was lucky that they were against Fulham purely because their finishing was dreadful. Absolutely nothing coming out of Iwobi, who tried shot after shot after shot, and I can't remember any of them really testing Onana. And I don't know whether that's Manchester United being lucky that Fulham played really, really badly. Not played really badly, but didn't put their chances away, or if that's Manchester United being bad because they let Fulham have that many chances. It's really hard to define. And even when those players are not at it, like Anthony, like Fernandes, Harry Maguire had a fairly bad game as well, I thought, giving away plenty of opportunities. There wasn't any real depth off the bench. You looked at the bench, and the first person that came on was Pellistri, I think. And although there's quality players there, like Mount, like I think Varane was on the bench, they're not coming on because apparently they're wrong for the system, but they're also players that partially Ten Hag signed. Ten Hag signed Mason Mount. So he must have somewhere for him to fit in the system, but he doesn't. It's honestly baffling. And if you're in Mason Mount's position, you're thinking, why am I here at the moment? And that is, I think, one of the deeper concerns that Manchester United fans and players need to have. The fact that there isn't a consistent game plan. There's not a real structure going forwards. Slight itchy nose, my bad. There's no sort of behind-the-scenes thinking that goes into it. It's a matter of, these are our players, chuck them on the pitch, let's see what happens. It's Sunday League, tactically. There's no sort of bespoke tactical system to each opponent. It looked like they were playing Man City or Newcastle again, the way they were playing. There was nothing going on that said, this is a side that's against Fulham and they've come prepared against Fulham. It just felt very, they've tried stuff on the training pitch, we'll see what happens. I think that's a fundamental part of Ten Hag lacking game plans, and if you don't have game plans, you won't do well in the Premier League. And if you don't have good game plans as a manager, then you're going to have poor discipline across the squad. Marcus Rashford went out after his birthday, if I remember right, although they did lose to Manchester City. I personally think that's pretty normal, to be honest. You can have a bad day at work and then go out. But Ten Hag seems to have made him the example rather than several other cases of things that have gone through courtrooms. And I think that his decision-making in that case is absolutely shocking. The same with Jadon Sancho. Yes, his attitude is bad, and yes, that deserves some form of disciplining. But at the same time, you've outed his mental health problems. I think Ten Hag's way of handling not only tactically on the pitch stuff, but off the pitch discipline and making sure that you've got a team unit rather than a bunch of individuals is shocking. It's not worked. But then you think, okay, if you're saying Ten Hag out, what are the alternatives? And I've had a look through some of the coaches that are available at the moment and why they don't work at Manchester United. First up, Graham Potter. The club doesn't have the patience for Graham Potter. It's going to be a big project if you get him in, like it would have been at Chelsea, and they didn't have the patience there either, and they sacked him for Frank Lampard. Could also get Frank Lampard if you wanted. It'd be a horrible idea, but sure, why not? You've got Antonio Conte, and the players don't match there, both in terms of tactics and discipline. Conte wants discipline. Conte wants players that are dedicated to the system, and Manchester United's players do not have any of that in the slightest. Conte going wouldn't work. And then you look at other managers, because there's not too many on the market. You're in the zone of Marsh, Hasenhüttl, Dean Smith, and they're all low prestige, and they're not going to get respect from the dressing room either, because it's a dressing room that looks at new managers and goes, sod it. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was just run by that dressing room. And that's what would happen if you picked any of these managers or anyone with a lower level of prestige. You've also got the likes of Hansi Flick, but in the UK, people haven't really heard that much of Hansi Flick. So he's unlikely to get picked up. But what are the solutions? I think if you're Manchester United, you have a significant surgery ahead of you to get off life support. First up, you'd need to gut the team. You would need to take out all the players that do not suit the system. You would need to do a lot of recruiting. It'd be a complete rebuild. In the surgery metaphor I'm going for, it's like building RoboCop. You'd have to accept short-term failure because it's not going to be a snap, done, fix. It's going to be long. It's going to be a project. It's going to be something that you have to fix in the years to come across lots of transfer windows rather than, we'll get someone in, we'll win a Carabao Cup, it'll be fine. And finally, you need to build a grander project. Because at the end of the day, Manchester United are on life support, and those are the problems with it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe. See you next time.